Let's pause just for a moment. Close your eyes, unless you're driving, and take a slow breath in. Now ask yourself this: whose life are you really living? Because here's the uncomfortable truth most of us spend years avoiding. The stress you carry, the fear that keeps you up at night, the quiet ache of regret. It often comes down to one simple thing. You're living your life for everyone but yourself. Maybe it started innocently. You wanted to make your parents proud. You didn't want to disappoint your boss. You tried to be the friend who's always there, the partner who never complains, the person who never rocks the boat. Little by little, piece by piece, you traded your truth for approval. And you didn't even notice it was happening. We wear so many masks, we forget what our real face looks like. And then one day, we wake up exhausted, not from doing too much, but from being too little of ourselves. Steve Jobs once said, "Don't waste your life living someone else's." He didn't say that to sound cool. He said it because he'd seen the other side. When time runs out and you realize you never really lived. So I'll ask you this, gently but directly. When was the last time you made a decision that was just for you? Not to impress, not to avoid conflict, not to meet anyone else's standards, just for you. If you're still searching for the answer, you're not alone. We've been taught to believe that self-worth is something earned through validation. That peace is something granted by others. But that's a lie, a dangerous one. Because the truth is this: your life isn't on loan to the world. It's yours, completely, fully, unapologetically. And the moment you realize that is the moment everything starts to shift. This video isn't here to sugarcoat anything. It's a gentle nudge, a soft alarm clock for the soul, to remind you, you don't owe the world anything, but you do owe yourself everything. So let's begin, right here, right now, with the courage to come home to yourself. Lesson 1. The quiet betrayal of your own soul. Have you ever smiled when you were breaking inside? Nodded in agreement when every part of you was screaming no? Laughed at a joke that offended you? Said it's okay when it clearly wasn't? If you have, you're not alone. We've all done it. Little betrayals of our truth just to keep the peace, to be liked, to fit in. But here's the cost. Every time you abandon your own feelings, every time you silence that tiny voice within, you leave a piece of yourself behind. Think of it like this. You're standing in a cold rain without a coat. Someone asks if they can take your umbrella, and you smile and say, "Of course, take it." Then you watch them walk away dry and warm while you stay standing in the storm. It may feel noble in the moment, but over time it quietly wears you down. You start losing touch with what you truly want, what you need, who you really are. We often mistake silence for strength, but silence that costs your truth is just self-abandonment. Slowly, the distance between your outer life and your inner self begins to widen. And one day you realize you've built a life that looks fine on the outside, but feels empty on the inside. We grow up learning that being loved means being agreeable, that being accepted means being easy to be around. So we start softening our voice, shrinking our truth, and pretending we're fine, even when we're not. But here's the thing. You weren't born to be convenient. You weren't meant to be a mirror, reflecting back what others want to see. So ask yourself honestly, where in your life are you giving away your umbrella just to avoid the discomfort of saying no? Maybe it's at work, taking on projects you resent. Maybe it's in relationships, suppressing needs to avoid arguments. Maybe it's with family, playing the role they expect, even if it no longer fits. The first step toward healing isn't fighting the world, it's returning to yourself with compassion. Set boundaries not as walls, but as gates of sacred care. Practice kindness, not just outwardly, but inward too. Say no when your heart doesn't say yes. Pause before you agree to what drains you. Trust that your truth matters, because it does. Thich Nhat Hanh said, "To be beautiful means to be yourself." You don't need to be accepted by others. You need to accept yourself. You don't owe anyone a version of yourself that isn't true. You don't need to burn out just to keep everyone else warm. Real compassion doesn't come from self-sacrifice, it grows from self-respect. So today, come back home to yourself, one honest breath at a time. Lesson 2. Why living to please others will always let you down. Imagine a tree that sways with every gust of wind. It never grows deep roots, never finds its strength. Now ask yourself, how often are you that tree, constantly bending to meet others' expectations? There's a quote that says, "The greatest suffering is forgetting who you are." And it's true. You weren't born to be a mirror of someone else's dreams or fears. You were born to be you. But over time, without even realizing it, you may have started chasing applause you never asked for, approval you never needed. Here's the hard truth. When you live for other people, your happiness becomes fragile. One compliment lifts you up, one judgment tears you down. That kind of life is like trying to build a home on shifting sand. We see this everywhere. Social media thrives on likes and validation. Society tells you what success should look like. Friends, family, co-workers, they all have opinions about how your life should go. But here's the thing, none of them live in your skin. None of them walk in your shoes. So if you're always looking to others to tell you who you are, you slowly start losing touch with your own voice. Your dreams get quieter, your confidence fades, and before you know it, you're living a life that doesn't even feel like yours. But it doesn't have to be that way. Now imagine this instead. You're like a tree with deep, steady roots. The storm comes, but you're unshaken. Why? Because you know who you are. You're grounded in your truth. That kind of strength comes from tuning in, not out. From listening to your voice over the noise of the world. That's what mindfulness is about. It's not just meditation or quiet time. It's about being fully aware of your own needs, emotions, and beliefs, without letting others drown them out. It's choosing yourself every single day. To live for yourself doesn't mean being selfish. It means being honest. It means asking, what do I actually want today? It means learning to say no when you don't mean yes. It means trusting your inner compass, even when people don't get it. Start small. Each morning, check in with yourself. What do I need today? For me. Each night, ask, did I show up as my true self today? These little choices, they build powerful roots. Buddha said, peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. When you stop tying your peace to others' opinions, something amazing happens. You start feeling calm, steady, confident. You don't have to please everyone to be worthy. You don't have to chase approval to feel whole. You're already enough, right here, right now. So stand strong, stay grounded, build a mindset that's clear, calm, and rooted in your truth, and watch how the world starts adjusting to you, not the other way around. Lesson 3. Stop trading your peace for approval. Imagine sitting in a room, holding a remote control. But every time you want to turn the volume up or change the channel, someone else grabs it from your hands. One day it's your boss, the next it's your partner. Eventually you stop even reaching for it. That's what it feels like when you let others decide your worth. When your confidence rises and falls with what people say or don't say, you hand over control of your peace. And it doesn't always happen loudly. Sometimes it looks like staying quiet when you have something to say, or shelving a dream because you're afraid of being seen as too much, or dimming your joy to avoid being judged. We do it thinking we're being smart, being kind, being careful. But really, we're just slowly shrinking. Little by little, you trade authenticity for acceptance. And what's left behind is not a life, it's a performance. Here's the uncomfortable question. Who's holding your remote right now? And why did you give it to them? Maybe it was someone whose love felt conditional. Maybe it was a culture that told you being good means being quiet. Maybe it was fear, whispering that standing out is dangerous. But you weren't born to be remote controlled. You were born whole. Your value isn't earned through praise. It's yours by birthright. Buddhist wisdom reminds us, clinging to reputation is a subtle form of suffering. When we obsess over being seen as enough, we lose the chance to feel enough from within. So what if, just for today, you reached out and took that remote back? You spoke even if your voice shook. You chose something simply because it felt true, not because it looked right. This isn't about rebellion, it's about return. Returning to the place inside you that already knows who you are. Even when no one else applauds. Your worth doesn't need to be announced, defended, or proven. It only needs to be remembered. And maybe remembering starts with one gentle shift. Not asking, do they approve of me? But wondering, do I feel at peace with myself when I'm with them? So hold that thought, because what comes next may just shift the way you see yourself and help you rise stronger than ever, but from a place that feels finally, fully your own. Lesson 4. Shine without shrinking. The sun never pauses to ask, am I too much for the sky today? It doesn't dim when someone prefers shade. It simply rises, bright, bold, without apology. What if you lived like that too? What if you gave yourself permission to be fully seen, fully felt, even if not everyone liked it? What if approval wasn't the condition for your self-expression? The truth is, not everyone will resonate with you, and that's not a problem. It's part of being real. When you try to be liked by everyone, you dilute yourself. You trade your clarity for comfort. We're taught to believe that being accepted means being pleasing. But often, being pleasing means being quiet, small, agreeable. And every time you make yourself smaller, a little part of your truth gets lost in the process. Buddhism reminds us that attachment to reputation is a subtle but powerful form of suffering. The more you try to control how others see you, the more disconnected you become from who you really are. So instead of chasing understanding, turn inward. Ask, do I understand myself today? Am I honoring what feels right, even if others don't get it? The more you do that, the more grounded you become. You don't need to explain your calm, your silence, your choices. You don't need to prove your worth to those who were never meant to carry your light. Not everyone has the capacity to hold your truth. Let people misunderstand you. Let them judge from afar. Let them walk away if your honesty makes them uncomfortable. Their departure is not your loss. It's space being made for what's true. The moment you stop managing perception and start honoring presence, you begin to rise in a way that doesn't need applause. You begin to glow from the inside out. So make it a quiet promise to shine anyway, to keep walking in your truth, not for defiance, but because your soul no longer fits inside a box built for approval. And what you'll find just ahead isn't more praise. It's peace, a kind of peace you don't have to earn. And once you taste it, you won't go back. Lesson 5. Real freedom comes from living by your own values. You've come this far, and that already speaks volumes. Each step you've taken has peeled away another layer. The need to please, the fear of being misunderstood, the craving to be accepted. Now we arrive at something quieter, but deeper. What does success mean when no one else is watching? Let's begin with a simple story. A young woman runs every morning, not for trophies or followers, but to feel her breath, her feet, her rhythm. One day someone says, "You should race, you're fast." She competes, she wins, but the next time she runs, she wonders who's watching. Her rhythm disappears. So does the joy. This is what happens when we start creating to be seen instead of to feel. When we shift from presence to performance, from being to proving. What once felt natural becomes a show we're no longer part of. We live in a world flooded with numbers and praise, followers, likes, benchmarks. But none of those truly see you. None of them know the quiet satisfaction of ending the day with a soft inner voice saying, "I stayed honest today." Living by your values doesn't mean ignoring others. It means filtering wisely, keeping what aligns, and gently releasing what doesn't. It means asking yourself, would I still choose this if no one clapped? It takes courage to stop chasing gold stars and start noticing your own compass. But the reward is peace, not the kind that comes from applause, but the kind that comes from not needing it anymore. So begin small. Change the goal from "I want to be admired" to "I want to feel true." From "I hope they approve" to "I hope I don't silence myself." Those kinds of goals don't shake when trends shift. They don't crumble when no one responds. They anchor you deeply, quietly, fully. And slowly, you'll start to see the difference. You won't feel the need to perform. You'll start to create, speak, live in ways that feel like home. So let this next step be rooted not in louder applause, but in deeper listening. Because what's coming ahead isn't about being more impressive. It's about becoming more you. So let this next step be rooted not in louder applause, but in deeper listening. Because what's coming ahead isn't about being more impressive. It's about becoming more you. And if that idea stirs something quiet inside you, don't go anywhere. Because the part we're stepping into next, it might just shift the way you see everything. Lesson 6. Fill yourself first so you can give freely. There's a simple truth we forget far too often. You can't light 1,000 lamps if your own flame is about to burn out. Yet many of us still try, showing up for others with empty hands and a tired heart. We give our time, our energy, our care, while quietly neglecting the very source those things come from, ourselves. We've been taught that putting others first is love, that sacrifice equals virtue, that needing space is weakness. But what if true love begins by turning inward? What if protecting your energy isn't selfish, but sacred? Imagine what would change if you gave yourself the care you so freely give away. In Buddhist wisdom, compassion always begins with the self. You can't offer peace when you're overwhelmed. You can't give light when you're surrounded by your own shadow. You can't heal others while abandoning your own healing. This is not about shutting the world out. It's about no longer shutting yourself down. It's learning to notice your exhaustion before it becomes resentment. It's respecting your limits before they break you. Tending to your own needs isn't indulgence, it's responsibility. Because how you care for yourself teaches the world how to care for you. And more importantly, it shapes how you care for others, calmly, steadily, from wholeness. Start with simple questions. What do I truly need today? Where have I been saying yes out of guilt instead of alignment? These small check-ins are acts of self-respect. Sometimes self-care looks like rest. Sometimes it's stepping away from noise. Sometimes it's saying no without apology. And sometimes it's letting yourself be enough without earning it first. You weren't put here to fix everyone else while falling apart inside. You're not selfish for needing space. You're wise enough to know you can't pour from an empty cup, and you were never meant to try. So build a life that restores you. Create habits that refill your energy. Surround yourself with people who respect your rhythm, not just your usefulness. This isn't indulgence, it's integrity. Because from that place of inner fullness, you don't give out of guilt or obligation. You give because presence flows naturally from peace. You love not because you must, but because you can. You show up without resentment, because you haven't abandoned yourself in the process. So go gently. Refill your own light again and again. Make it a quiet, consistent rhythm, one rooted in care, not performance. And just ahead, something beautiful waits. A moment where the energy you've poured back into yourself begins to overflow and become the most generous thing you'll ever offer. And maybe, the more you choose to return to yourself, the more the world begins to feel like home too. Stay with this, because the next truth we're about to touch, it's one most people spend a lifetime running from. Lesson 7. Stillness is the greatest teacher. A still lake reflects the sky not because it tries to, but because it doesn't move. In stillness, everything becomes clear. What's scattered comes home. What's blurred becomes defined. But stillness is what we fear the most. We associate being alone with abandonment, with lack, with silence too loud to bear. So we reach for noise, for schedules, for connection, anything to avoid meeting ourselves. We live in a world that glorifies being busy. The more seen you are, the more valuable you appear. But if you can't feel at peace when you're by yourself, then you're not really at home inside your mind. Solitude isn't a weakness. It's not loneliness by default. It's a doorway, a return, an invitation to meet yourself without distraction, without judgment, without needing to perform. Ask yourself honestly, when no one's around, do you feel calm or restless? Are you filling space to avoid discomfort, or creating space to rediscover who you are? Sometimes the most important thing you can do is sit quietly with yourself. No screen, no music, no agenda, just breath and awareness, side by side. It doesn't have to be long. 10 minutes is enough. 10 minutes of being fully present with your own thoughts, your own breath, your own inner life. That's where mindfulness begins. Not on a mountain, not in a retreat, but in the quiet seat you return to every day. A space where you don't have to prove anything. You just are. And here's the truth. When you stop fearing solitude, you start making peace with your own presence. And once you find safety there, no one can take it from you. Every connection you build from that place becomes more honest. You're no longer reaching out from lack. You're offering from fullness. You stop seeking to be completed and start choosing who you share your light with. Solitude becomes strength, not because you push people away, but because you no longer rely on them to feel whole. You belong to yourself now. So carve out quiet daily, sit without fixing, notice without rushing. Let your silence be a teacher, not a punishment. Because there are truths the world cannot tell you. Only your stillness can. And if you're willing to listen, what comes next may not just change how you sit with yourself, but how you stand in your life. And if you're willing to listen, what comes next may not just change how you sit with yourself, but how you stand in your life. Because once you're no longer afraid of being alone, you become ready for something far more powerful. Being fully, fearlessly yourself. Lesson 8. You are valuable simply because you exist. A diamond doesn't lower its price just to be chosen. It doesn't explain why it shines. It simply is whole, untouched, unbothered by who recognizes it or not. But somewhere along the way, we forget that we too are born with that kind of worth. We start believing that love must be earned, that value comes with achievement, that being enough requires evidence. From childhood, we're taught to prove ourselves, to be good enough for praise, obedient enough for approval, successful enough for belonging. Slowly, we internalize a message that says, you are only worthy when others say so. And so we bargain. We hide what's real, we overextend, we perform, hoping someone will stay, understand, accept, all while quietly abandoning our own center. But Buddhism reminds us of something gentler, that your worth isn't conditional, it's not granted, it's inherent. You don't have to reach for it, it lives within you, untouched by opinion or outcome. You are not a currency, you are not a product. You are not here to be measured by likes, roles, or applause. You are here, simply, and that is enough. So pause and look honestly. Where are you negotiating your worth? Where are you waiting to be chosen before choosing yourself? Where are you seeking reflection instead of resting in recognition? Notice those patterns with compassion. Don't shame them. Just meet them with awareness. Then return. Back to the breath. Back to the quiet space where nothing is required of you. Put your hand on your heart and say, I am whole. I don't need to do more to deserve being. Let it feel awkward at first. Let it sink in slowly. Let it become your truth. Not because someone told you, but because you finally remember. And from that place, you begin to live differently. You stop over-explaining. You stop shrinking your joy. You stop dressing your truth up for someone else's comfort. You start to speak from stillness, love from fullness. Walk into the world with the quiet knowing that your light doesn't flicker just because others can't see it. Because when you reclaim your worth, you stop chasing and start choosing. You stop waiting and start becoming. You don't need to prove, only to be. And if that feels like a kind of freedom you've forgotten, stay with it. Because what's coming next will not only help you remember your light, but show you how to carry it with both hands, steady, unshaken, and yours alone. Lesson 9. You can't control everything, but you can choose how you respond. A river doesn't resist the rocks in its way. It doesn't stop to fight or force anything out of its path. It simply flows, around, through, and beyond, steady and clear. But many of us spend our lives doing the opposite. We try to control conversations, outcomes, people's opinions, even time itself. And the tighter we grip, the more anxious we become. We think control will give us peace, but instead it builds tension. We micromanage every moment, overthink every detail, and live on edge, reacting, anticipating, exhausting ourselves. The truth is, life will always move in directions we can't predict. People will say things we don't expect, plans will shift, situations will change, and no amount of control will ever change that. What we can choose, however, is how we meet those changes. We can respond with fear or with presence, with resistance or with trust. And that one choice, our response, is where our true power lives. Buddhist wisdom teaches that attachment creates suffering, and control is one of attachment's most seductive forms. It disguises itself as strength, but it's often fear in a clever costume. Fear of chaos, fear of not being enough, fear of letting go. But what if letting go isn't the end of control, but the beginning of clarity? Ask yourself, where am I trying too hard to control what's uncontrollable? And how much of my energy is going into things I can't change? Then pause, breathe, come back to center. Because when you stop reacting automatically, you create space to choose differently. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means softening your grip. It means trusting that you can handle the flow, even when it's uncertain. And when something doesn't go your way, pause before reacting. Feel what arises. Let it move through you without letting it own you. Then speak or act from a place of calm, not panic. That small space between reaction and response is where your freedom lives. It's where the struggle ends and the flow begins. You become like the river, quietly powerful. You don't avoid the rocks, but you no longer crash against them. You move with intention, not desperation. And if a part of you is ready to stop fighting what's out of your hands, stay with that. Because what comes next isn't about controlling more. It's about trusting more. Yourself, the moment, and the path unfolding beneath your feet. You were never meant to live someone else's version of a life. Not the filtered one they approve of, not the smaller one they're more comfortable with. You came here to be whole, not half acceptable. Every message in this journey has led to one place, back to you, back to the quiet strength within, the unshakable part of you that's always known. You are already enough. True peace begins when you stop negotiating your truth to make others feel okay. When you stop apologizing for wanting more, needing rest, or setting boundaries. The world may try to shape you, but you don't have to mold yourself to fit it. You can choose stillness over approval, clarity over chaos, and your own voice over the noise. You are not broken. You don't need fixing. You need remembering. And that remembering starts now. So start small, but start. Choose one moment today where you listen inward, where you respond with peace, where you trust your light even if no one claps. You are the sun, and the sun never asks for permission to rise. It simply shines quietly and without apology. So let this be your moment, the one where you stop chasing and start becoming, where you live rooted, not rushed, whole, not waiting. And if this journey has touched something deep within you, pause for a moment and ask yourself, what truth are you finally ready to live, whether or not anyone understands? Share it in the comments. I'd truly love to hear it. And if you'd like to keep exploring calm, soulful reflections like this, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next step on your healing path.